Welcome, welcome, welcome. March 1st, 2022. How are you? Marketing Made Easy. My name is Joey Ragona, a blurry Joey Ragona, as my colleague Scott Vogel is telling me because I've got some bad internet connection over here. So I'm very aware of that. And I apologize upfront for my bad quality here. So we got so much things going on in the home today, all these devices looking for wireless power. And well, it kind of affects the broadcast. But hey, you know what? We are still going to broadcast as best as possible here. Again, apologize for the crappy um, display that I have coming through here, but hopefully that won't hinder this discussion that we're coming up with today. We're talking about today. How you doing, my friend? Scott Vogel in the house. We have to. You have to. I'm going to unmute you because there we go. Now I
Yeah,
can hear you.
you like the power of muting me, don't you? There are few people that can do that. I'm well, Joey. Thanks. And
Good.
by the way, Joey, maybe you're a little fuzzy, but it's actually gotten a little better right now.
Great.
Your audio is fine.
Fantastic. That's all that matters is the audio, really. They
They
got to
don't
hear the brilliance coming from us.
they don't need to be blown away by your handsomeness.
Right on. I am excited about this show because every show like we have it's kind of this random pick of ideas and kind of what the universe talks to us about and like, hey, let's talk about this today. And today I picked up one of my fancy journals, from that I'm always journaling with. This one was from 2012. I couldn't believe how old this one is. Went to a page, saw some stuff on marketing and selling, and thought, why don't we talk about that on the marketing show? And it has to do with the customer needs, but in another light. And because you and I do different um, categories of selling, I thought that this would be a really good topic because this is what this is all about selling to higher levels and selling to the lower cost areas, which is what you have, and I'm selling on the higher end, and what it takes is to sell those things and what is needed to talk to the customers. And it's from a book actually called, I pulled the book as well, it's called Spin Selling. I don't know if you've ever read this one.
Yep, I have.
Awesome. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, which is the implied selling or the implied needs of the customer and the explicit needs of the customer. So, do you want to kick off or do you want to? I did make some notes. So I copied some notes from my notebook just so I have them here so we can talk a little bit about them. But did you have anything to say about it since you've read it already?
I'm gonna have you start it off, Joey, because you just finished reading it, and that's was a while back.
No, I didn't finish reading. This was like I read this back like 20 years ago.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so I just copied some of the notes that I took from it. And I think that really it's going to help. Oh, thank you, Netta. That's so cool. Hey, Lorna, and
Uh,
thank you, Netta. um, this you're going to love this, Netta, and everybody else listening to this. You're going to love this one because this is all about like how do you speak to the customer needs and the. So let me explain quickly what the implied needs are of the customer, and that's really like the top level stuff where I'm not satisfied with my current investment, and that's like a implied need. And the explicit need is um, I need to have a better way to make money and save money for my future. Like that's an explicit need. Those are the two differences, and really what we're talking about here is specifics, right? And the differences, and we'll get into the topic of this, is because on a smaller scale, you're selling a $100 item or something like that. You don't necessarily need the major implicit needs to sell because it's more on the problem. This is the problem I have, and people will easily trade $50, $100 for to solve the problem. When you get into the higher level, there is that balance, or what Neil calls the value equation, where it's like I'm trading this money for a problem, but is the problem bigger than the money that I'm trading it for. And so that's when the explicit needs come into play, where we need to go deeper. And like this is all I do is try to get deeper into the mind of what is the customer truly feeling. We talked about it before, like the pain and the problem and all those things attached, like talking about the problem. Um, but it's really what's the pain involved there, which I guess would be the explicit need. And so on a higher level is where you need to get into the details. So that's the overall explanation, and we'll go from there. Any input there?
Excellent presentation, Joey, of spin selling. And there is a disparity. It's not the same thing, as you said, when you're selling a $100 product. Let's just use that easy numbers, or a $5,000 product, two easy numbers.
Yeah.
With with the $100 product, it's an emotional sell, it's an impulse buy, it's to solve a need or provide a benefit, a solution, an advantage. And it's pretty much the conversation is that something that'll solve my problem? And is it worth $100 to me to solve that problem? Okay, great. That's kind of it. When obviously we're looking at 5, 10, 20, 50, $100,000 projects, yeah,
Thank you,
we
Colin.
got to go way deep and really discover everything about them. As we've talked about in unpacking so many different areas, us playing together for the last 109 shows, at least 2 years and more, is I've talked about this. I used to say I needed 5 basic things from somebody to help them, to engage with them, to play with that level. Now it's turned into 8. And of course, the dream client is in there, and the chain of beliefs is in there, and the superpower matrix, because all of those are what you talk about. I don't need to worry about superpowers and matrices and your chain of beliefs a little bit, but the rest of it is not come into play with a lower price product. And it's getting it out to the consumer rather than a one-on-one or 1 to 10, 1 to 20, 1 to 50, which is what coaching, consulting, masterminds, high-end programs, courses, cohorts are all about.
Yeah, and what Neil talks about in the book, which I thought was interesting, is that um, the differences, like on a smaller scale, the differences between the implicit and the explicit are irrelevant. So, like you said, like it really doesn't matter. However, the more explicit needs that you uncover, which is what we have talked about for 109 episodes, that you can explain the problem better, the better it is for you to make a sale. So, and I still think to me, it's worth the effort to put in, a little bit more thought into, what's your problem? Well, I want, my investments suck, you know, and just leave it at that. Like instead of going to have a landing page that says, "Do your investments suck?" It would be more like, "Do your investments suck? And do you want to know how to save money or save an extra, whatever $5,000 this year without taking it away from your current income, whatever, something like that." That's more explicit. I think that that's the real benefit to that. Do you agree, or what are your
I
thoughts on
totally
that?
agree. It's kind of you use explicit, and it is explicit, and it gets into the law of specificity.
Well, we use the word specifics, but I'm just using his language word. Yeah.
Yeah, either way, it really is, because that's when we're dialing deeper into the true language, into the mindset of the person, which is what we talk about, what it's all about. Even in selling $100 product, I'm still concerned about these pieces, that the dialogue. I had a conversation today with my developer. And he's like, okay, so how are we going to sell this now? I said, we're going to do these different things. We're going to put out content. We're going to put out social. We're going to use different chains to start. Then we're going to figure out what the languaging is. What are they using it for? What are they saying? What market is really playing with this? Then we go deeper into that market and that understanding to get more specific, implicit with what does the languaging have to be? Because the sales cycle also is hugely different. Obviously, with a $100 product, the sales cycle is not as long as the $25,000 sale. maybe a $3,000, $5,000 sales, you can get away with 6 emails, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a much longer process because somebody's got to say, "Am I willing to invest thousands of dollars?"
Yeah,
Hundred
and
dollars.
this is the reason why when I'm talking to my clients about dream clients, because it's all on a higher scale, the premium dream clients and all this is one of the reasons why it's an easier sale. However, it's a longer sale because people don't make a $5,000 or $3,000 decision right away, usually,
Right.
and so it's a longer process. However, it's easier when you understand the customer in a way that you can talk about the explicit needs. And that's the reason why I'm always looking for what does that mean? Like you're telling me whatever your funnel didn't work or whatever it is, and like tell me about that. Like what's the story behind that? So I'm always digging for the story so that they can tell me what they're feeling and all the things that they're not saying on the surface. Like I'm not selling enough. Like that's an implicit need. It's not an explicit. I'm not selling enough. Well, what does that mean? Right? Because you could go and say, join Atlas or join WMC and get more sales. Like that's obvious, like, of course, but it's when you go deeper.
Well, that's I think one of the biggest mistakes, Joey, of the discovery slash clarity slash whatever call is. It's
Yeah.
designed and trained to engage somebody somehow, whether it's through a bot or a conversation or a DM or a post, however the interaction is, to engage them to a point where you can get them on the call, spend 15, 20 minutes finding out maybe some basic needs, and then going in for the close, going in for the
Yeah.
kill.
Oh gosh.
Instead of, let me find out all about you, everything there is to know about you, and where you're at, and where you've been, and why you're here, and why you got to where you are. And that takes time. And I'll go back to Alex Hermosi $100 million offers, is that's what he suggests. And that's what you're talking about. And that's what Atlas is about. And that's what I've done in the past and still love doing is, yeah, if you're going to go after a, whatever, 2, 3, 5, 25, 50, 100, $1 million client, that's not the same thing as, well, I'm putting this new software out there to the world and it's going to be 50 and then maybe this and 100, 200. We're talking about a whole different value proposition.
So
And the
how do
journey.
you deal with that? Like how are you solving or talking about the problem? And by the way, please let us know in the comments if you have any uh, questions about your product or you want to talk about the implicit or explicit or the specifics of yours and we can help you out as well. So let us know. So how are you
Well,
marketing the problem?
it has to do a lot, Joey, with what we unpacked with the chain of beliefs a couple of weeks ago. I basically took all of those and I created 22 marketing points that took into consideration. You don't have to be a professional videographer. You don't have to know anything about this. You don't have to do this. And taking those little things, which is a lot of the objections, but basically it's Carvel, my developer partner, was with his family over the weekend and he wanted to show it to his daughter. And his daughter was like, she was like, could spend an hour looking through all of her images to figure out what to make a video with. That's, the challenges. And we talked about that too. Is you're going to go through digital folders with thousands of things to relive your memories, and it's going into the emotions. And I'm still playing with it and figuring it out. But basically, it was taking about 22 different iterations of what we came up with, and they're 15, 20-second statements that will turn into videos. And I'll put it out there, and I'll see what resonates based on that. And now I have the next version out, and my users, I'll start to get the language from them. I'll start to get the language from them. I'll understand more
Do
about.
you have like a specific problem? The chain of beliefs. So for people listening and didn't really catch last week's show, which is I think it was last week we did that, right? Um, but yeah,
Somewhat
like
2 weeks. It was 2 weeks ago, Joey.
2 weeks ago. Okay. Uh, the differences there are they are the objections that there's what do people need to believe,
Right.
But I think that the chain of beliefs, I'm just thinking about this out loud now, is it starts with the problem.
Yeah.
It's not really problems that the chain of beliefs are. So if you trust and believe that, then what's the problem that they're entering with? And then what do they need to believe to solve that problem?
The basic problem they're entering with our product is they've got all these photos they've taken that they want to share with people, and they want to transport themselves, their friends, family, and colleagues back to a time and place and share their life, their memories, their emotions, the joy, the happiness, the laughter, the experience, because that's what we're about, experiences. They want to share their life experiences with people they love and do it in an easy way, because right now they've got thousands and they just don't know what to do with them.
Right. Because that's what I was gonna insert there when you were talking. They've got this, and that, and then but, and then that's what the problem is. So
Yeah,
part of the problem is what? They've got thousands of videos
yeah.
and all this stuff, but and then what? How would you finish that?
And no way to share them easily with people they want to share them with, to relive those memories.
Yeah, combine and share them, right?
Yeah.
Find, combine, and share. Here's your tagline. Find, combine, and share easily within seconds. Video memory maker, out now and stored near you. Anyway, send me my check for that.
You check for that one. Okay, our checks will cross the mail.
But you know what I mean? It's like the problem has to be there, and where um, and your chain of beliefs may not need to be that long, right? Because it's like a lower entry point for them if they just
Yeah,
believe that this thing will solve this problem if the problem is the one they want solved, and that's for everybody like listening to this, and that's going even for a higher price. Like anything you're doing is the problem has to be apparent for them to say, I'm going to trade my money for this.
yep,
And right, so
totally, completely. And like you said, Joey, it comes down to a tagline and a couple of points. It's not this long, involved, engaged process that involves levels and interactions. This is about, hey, you got a problem, and this can help you solve it. Take a look at it. You want to give that much money for this thing to get the result? Great, let's go.
right. Yeah, and that's why, like, even when I was learning how to sell, if you want to call it that, and let's say going through all the bulldozer marketing scripty things, and just the
Yeah,
way that they would try to bring these things to the surface to, like, oh my God, you know, does your family isn't your family worth it? Stuff like crazy stuff to try to bring in the emotional piece of how long have you been suffering like this? Well, 5 years. Okay, well then join my program. It's only $5,000. Well, I'm gonna think about that. Isn't your family worth it? Haven't they suffered long enough? Like, give me a break. And those are not what we're talking about.
Joey is
And
what you Joey is what you just told me, that you've been struggling for years. Well, yeah, that's what I just told you.
yes, am I hearing this right? God. Um, I mean, part of that could be true. It could be true, but it's how you spin it. Um,
It is how you spin it, and I'm playing with that
of course,
because
yeah,
if someone says I've been struggling, it's like, well, tell me, what do you mean you've been struggling? What does that look like? What does struggling mean? What have you done? What have you tried? That, rather than going, okay, I've struggled. Well, struggle no more. Here is my Atlas program. It's like, no, it may not even be the thing for you. And that's where everything we talk about, Joey, is when we truly find out what the buyer, person, client, prospect, whatever you want to call them, what's going on in their lives, when we care enough about that rather than a sales process. We got
yeah,
to go.
yeah, and it's also another piece to this is like, um, is this a problem that they is serious enough that in their lives that they want to solve? That's why in Atlas I call it the crisis. Like instead of like what's the problem, it's like no, what's the crisis right now? Like there's a crisis going on that they need solved, and if you can figure that out, then the sale is superfluous. Like it's so easy. There's nothing to it, and so a lot of times I've been there a million times trying to sell a problem that I thought, well, this is a problem, but it's not something that they're willing to really, it's not that they're not willing to trade money for it. It's kind of like a back burner problem. I can deal with
Right.
this right now and I'll get back to you. And I'm sure
Yep.
that there's people listening to this right now who might resonate with that. And that's kind of where, when you're moving into the dream client area, or is looking for people that are looking for you to solve a problem rather than you putting a problem that's not really serious enough for them to say, I need this now, right?
Totally and completely right. For $100 for somebody to buy something that gives them a little payoff, a solution, yeah. But when we're talking about big money, and now we're talking about transformation, I'm not looking to transform somebody's life. I'm looking to give them a tool that'll solve a problem that they have, so they can get the benefit that they want, that emotional connection, impact with the people that they want to do it with.
Well, doesn't
And,
a small I've had the problem as well with selling lower priced items, that it's not a given. And
oh,
maybe that's what the market is trying to say, like, just do a tripwire, just do this, and get the sale. And it's not a given, Scott. I think it's harder to sell a lower price because it's like I just said, it's a back burner problem. Is this something I need
oh,
today?
oh,
No, then I'll just wait until next week. And it's
yeah,
always put behind. That's
yep,
why, if you're selling a lower price, and even though, it's not necessary to have implicit specific needs in your marketing message, it benefits you if you do. Yeah, no, not overkill, but it will benefit you to say, you've got this problem, and it's not serious enough, but have you thought about this? And they're like, holy crap. And then they move it up into the seriousness thing,
right. I
right?
like the I like the word you're also using, Joey, is crisis.
Hmm.
For what you're talking about is, forget about the problem, but let's get to the crisis, because the problem is just surface usually. I
Yeah,
don't have enough money, I don't have enough time, nothing's working. That's kind of on the surface. What's the crisis? Like what's currently going on right now that needs to be taken care of? And you're right, because I could get on, and you could too. We could get on a call with somebody and spend an hour or two and do what we do and figure out what's best for them and provide a solution that they could change their money for, to invest in that transformation they need at whatever the sum of money is, because we've gone to that depth and level. It's harder for me to, I can't just go out and do that with $100 product. I've got to really, like you said, find that problem out, make sure that I know what it is. Because if I don't, it's like, hey, get this thing. Well, why should I get this thing? Yeah, it's a cool thing. Maybe I'll get it, but not right now. I like
right.
the crisis piece for you.
To that point, I'm not, I've not, I don't think I've ever mentioned to you, or maybe I have, but in terms of the crisis, did you know, like, when I talk about the victory path, which is like the transformation? So I bring dream clients, or show my dream clients, to go from crisis to oasis. That's the other word I use. Have I ever told you that?
Yeah, I've heard you use that. Yes.
Okay. Because that's a huge difference between being in a crisis to the oasis, which is not like, okay, the crisis is gone. So just to visualize, right, where the people are, and say, well, what does the oasis look like? Or the dream island, which is oasis, I think, is a better word, but that's kind of how I visualize that. And then it's like more of, um, you were just saying, shoot, I just lost my train of thought. Uh, oh, it'll come back to me. Anyway, it'll come back to me. Dang, it was a good point too. I was going to talk about the what you just said about the $100 thingy. Anyway, talk about something and it'll come back to me. Or
When you're selling $100 product, you've got to figure a lot more out on the front end. Whereas if I'm selling a high end thing, I don't have to figure anything out on the front end, because I'm on with that person. I'm on with the individual person or company, and getting to do deep discovery. When we're selling a mass $100 product, we don't get to in the beginning get to that level. Now, over time, I will, because I talk to the people that are using it. I watch how they're using it, using it in different ways. I'll get deeper into it. Again, I do things backwards sometimes. But that's the way I do it. It's fun. I like it. And I think regardless, because whether I do it backwards or forwards or sideways or diagonally, it doesn't matter, because there's people that are selling $50, $100 products who are like, okay, I did it backwards. Well, you didn't know any better. So you did it backwards. Now you got to go out and really talk to people. And you got to find out what your users are and their experience, and a copy bank of them saying exactly what it is and their languaging. I know this is a kind of a broken record because we talk about this, but it's so vitally important to keep coming back to it. I was having a conversation today. We'll learn the languaging as they start to tell us what's happened with it. Has this solved the problem? And are they able to find, combine, and share easily their photos into video memories and really like touch the loved ones? And if that's it, and they're like, this is great, well, then now there's the languaging that deepens that part of the message, as opposed to maybe there's another message out there that I'm playing with. And that's where testing and putting it out in, that's the beauty of free social media. You get to put it out on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and let people look at it, play with it, like it, not, hate it, good, don't like it, dislike it. Well, if you dislike it, that's great. Well, I know that there's something wrong with it, or that's not the right one. And it takes a lot more time. I know it takes a lot more time because I'm in the throes of it right now.
Yeah, and I think that we were talking about this today on the Atlas call about timing and like how long things take, and everybody gets frustrated after you try something for a couple of weeks, whatever, which is normal for all of us, because especially when we're trying different things. I've tried this thing, I'm going to do this new thing, and no matter what you say, our human brain is always like, where's the proof of this, or where's the results and all this other stuff. And really, I just realized today that you're going to put time in regardless of what you choose to do. And that's just the bottom line. And for those who think that you don't put time in, you're wrong. Like, I'm just going to say, no, you're just completely wrong. Even if it's just to the point of, I'm going to run an ad and I'm going to get a whole bunch of people in, and at least I can see this is working. Well, yeah, you might get opt-ins, like 1,000 people opting in, but that has no guarantee that those people are going to buy. Whereas if I spent the same amount of time, because people are going to buy within the timeline, that the whole 18-month thingy, and I just proved it today. It showed somebody from Atlas who bought, and it was exactly what I just said. They and this is what I was going to talk about, which is like the seriousness of the problem. How serious is this right now? And when I had there's two examples of this. One was that someone who just bought came to me a year ago, or basically reached out a year ago, replied to an email, and then 10 months later, which was November of last year, replied to another email. Okay. And then February today, bought Atlas. So it was like exactly the timeline, right? It was within the 18 months. It wasn't the first 4 weeks. It wasn't the first 90 days. The first 90 days was a one contact, but then it was like 10 months later for another contact, and then a buy a year later, which is like, well, the seriousness of the problem wasn't either there, or they didn't trust me. And the other part of this, did you want to say something to that?
Yeah, it's not only that maybe the problem wasn't serious enough as in crisis,
Yeah.
or maybe they didn't trust you. It could have been there's other factors at play. It could be that, look, I got a full-time job, my wife's pregnant, this and that. I don't have an extra 3 minutes to do anything, much less. I really want to do this. I could probably put the money up, but you know what? Life right now is this, that, and the other thing, this family.
Yeah, but that's still in my mind the seriousness of the problem, Scott. It's like it's on the lower level of the hierarchy of needs,
Right.
right? It's like my family is first, my job, I got to pay my bills and all this stuff. Yes, this is serious, but it just ain't serious enough to stop all these other things.
Right.
So you're totally right. but
Yeah.
I think it still goes in that seriousness box, don't you think?
Yeah. I'll put it in the seriousness box because what I wanted to get to was you say 18 months. And I remember when I first met Aunt
Up to
Hodges.
18 months. Yeah.
Well, when I met Aunt Hodges a few years ago, his is extended. His is 5 years. He's like, there was somebody that watched him for 5 years, downloaded everything he ever did, watched everything. And one day he said, I'm ready to work with you. He goes, well, program. He goes, no, I don't want any programs. I've seen all your stuff. I just want to hire you. How much to hire
Yeah,
you?
those are outliers. That happens, and this is the argument that everybody has when I talk about get people off your list who aren't engaged and everything else, and that's always the argument that comes up. Well, I know this person who 5 years later somebody came in and gave them $1 million. Yes, there's always outliers, but that's not the norm. I would,
It's
I mean,
not.
yeah. So it's not that his thing went 5 years. It's like
No,
this one thing happened,
right.
but normally it's like it's within an 18-month period that somebody's going to it's here's the thing of the people that are going to buy, which we don't know who they are. If you could pinpoint those people, this is very important. Of those people, then within 18 months, they will buy. 50% of those people will buy. That's the whatever you want to call it, the theory, or so it's not like everybody's going to buy within 18 months.
What you're saying makes sense, and just like the importance of the color of the button
We're
and
not going there. I'm not going to spend any energy on that.
the
Uh, Joey, I love how you say to give new efforts time to create transaction. I think you said or traction. Right. Yes. 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 Thank you.
no, and I'm going to jump on what Kay said. You have to give it time, because you could have a conversation today. I could have a conversation with somebody new today, Joey. There may have just been a conversation, and now we're
Yes.
watching each other. Huh, interesting. 3 years ago, I watched this guy named Joey Ragona in Kajabi, and we were commenting, and we shared the same values in that. And one day, all of a sudden, again, I don't think we could go back and say how long it took, but it was a while. It
Yeah.
was a period of months till all of a sudden something happened. And that's exactly what Kay said. And that's how we interact with people. It could be a quick chat or reply. You help somebody in a group, and then maybe a month or two later, they ask a question, you answer it. And then 3 months later, they read something you wrote. And 5 months later, all of a sudden, they're like, you know what? That's where you talk about the trust piece. Because you look at the journey that somebody takes you on, and at some point, a lot of people abuse your trust, and they take advantage of you, and they piss you off, and you go away. Whereas that's not what you teach, and that's not what you are, and that's not what we do. It is about that journey, and it's 18 months, and whatever the percentages are. That's the only reason I was playing with the button color for a second, Joey, was, the people put out there these things, percentages, but yours, let's just use it as a good rule that over 18 months, X number of people come into your ecosystem. 50% of them, if you've done it right and you continue to engage with them, they're going to end up being a buyer, because if not, they're going to be out in the beginning.
Well, 50% of the 50% that are left over from the people who opted in. So let's use 100.
Yeah,
So 100 people, 50 of them are never going to buy.
right,
The leftover 50 of those 50 of the people that are going to buy within those 50, okay, are going to buy within 18 months. So it's not 50%
right.
of the people. So I want to get that clear, because I've made that mistake a lot of times, and I want to send the wrong message out to the world and say, oh, 50%, that's what Joey and Scott said. No, it's
No,
like, and we don't know who those 50% are, or sorry, those remaining people, who those people are. And so, and this is another discussion, I guess, but it's relevant because, you know, when we're talking about the seriousness of the problem, this is where I have let go trying to, bring that seriousness to someone's face every single day to get them to buy. I know that my dream client comes in at a serious crisis point. However, they also have a total mistrust for the industry. Not me personally, but I'm involved in that industry. It's kind of like I've been lumped in with the gurus and the coaches and all the kind of stuff. So I accept that, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. Let me just do what I do, and maybe they will in time trust me. So I've let go of that, and then the seriousness of the problem elevates into their life, because I'm talking about the crisis, but I'm also talking about the oasis a lot of times, and giving examples of people who have been in their situation, and hopefully over time they see that. And one thing I wanted, this is what I forgot about before, which just came back to me, about the seriousness of the problem. And I was again chatting with somebody about the new Atlas coming up, okay? And we're chatting away. And anyway, it came to a point where I was just saying, like, do you want to do the group thingy? Like, is that what you're looking for? And the person said, well, not right now, maybe in the future. And that message to me was like, this isn't for me. However, and I'm saying this to you and to everybody listening, because I could have sold the person. I could have said, well, that's still cool. You could still learn Atlas and blah blah. Like, I still could have sold Atlas,
Right.
but it would have been a wrong thing to do. It's a wrong sale, because it's like, well, I don't really need this thing right now. And who knows what could have happened in that case, where they come in and like, I'm really not into this. Like, this is not for me. And if that happens all the time, okay, because we're attached to money or sales, then the wrong feedback is coming back to us and thinking, holy crap, like I'm getting all these people, but they're asking for refunds. It's like, what's going on? Like, what? I don't have my stuff together. No, it's because we're talking about today. Like, these are all the things that we need to understand when we're talking to the customer. So that's what I wanted to bring up, to give you an example, or everybody example of the seriousness of the problem. If it's not serious, there's no need to sell it.
Joey, how would you suggest that people deal with the seriousness, the crisis when they discover it or when they come across it? What do you suggest somebody does rather than pounce on it and try and make the sale?
Can you ask that another way? I understand what you're asking, but I want to.
You're on a call with somebody, you're doing whatever you call it, and we're getting to know them. You're finding out where they're at, their struggles, their life, their journey, their purpose, all the things. And you get to the point where you know what their crisis is. You've gotten to that where you feel, okay, this is the crisis that really they need the transformation from to whatever. At that point, how do you handle that piece?
Okay, okay. It comes down to, remember I showed you that you can't see this because it's all blurry. My message navigator thingy. It comes down to that. It's really, it's kind of, where are they on the path? And if I discover that you have a crisis that you are identifying, and I just ask you, like, do you want some help with that? It's I'm always inviting the sale. I don't even know if that's the right way of positioning it. I'm not pushing it. But if it gets to the point that I've asked enough questions where they have not disengaged and they've told me more and more, because we're getting deeper into the story. Um, and then it's like, I know I can help them with that, instead of me saying, look, you know what? You're perfect for Atlas. I know I can help you with this. I asked the other question. Do you want some help with that? And obviously that's a sales question, but we have to have
Right.
some kind of invitation to move forward. And that point, they'll either say yes or no. And that's how I move on, Scott. Like, I do that all the time. However, in the case I just told you about, we never got to that question, or me asking that question, because I asked other questions that said, are you doing, are you thinking of doing this? Which I'm asking, basically qualifying them, are they ready for Atlas, right? And if
Right.
they say no to that, there's no reason for me to go through this script or whatever you want to call it to try and get to the next piece. Is like, this is not right. Thank you very much. Like, this is not the right fit for you. So I do ask explicitly, do you need help?
But I think what you also kind of alluded to, Joey, and by the way, I think inviting somebody to buy from you, I like that. To me, it sounds good. If I'm talking to someone, I'll say, I'm going to invite you to think about this, not think about this or do this, but I'm going to invite you to explore this. So I kind of like that, invite them to buy from you. It
Yeah. And if they say so, to further this, if you said yes, yes, I do, which most people at that point do, they say
yeah,
yes, right? And sometimes I feel kind of dumb asking the question, right? Because it's like we've been talking about it for like 40 minutes, but then it's like, well, duh. But I asked the question anyway because I want more what I call confirmation, right? That
well,
they want
you
help.
don't have to, and forget about NLP and all that stuff.
Yeah,
You got three yeses. This isn't about that, but it's, because you might spend time with someone and you say, would you like help with that? And they're like, "Nah, not really.
yeah, like not right now, or maybe some of the time, or whatever. And you're like, cool, that's fine, right? And when somebody says yes, then I say okay, and that's when I invite them. I say, well, why don't you go take a look at Atlas, which is used as the example. Go take a look at this, and let me know what you think, or if you have any questions. That's how I sell it. It's
That's
not like that's it. Like that's the wholesale thing. And they go and they do, and they either email me back or whatever, or they don't. And I don't put them through a whole, hey, you're
well,
missing out $50 off and all this kind of stuff, whatever. I don't do
Joey,
any of that.
same thing here is, after I get off a call, whatever it is, a couple of hours, find out what I need to. I go in and I put together nothing fancy. It's just kind of like I go into Kajabi, into an offer, and I say, here's the things that I'm going to do for you, and here's how much it's going to cost. If you'd like to do it, you give me this much money to start, and we'll begin the project. That's it. Let me know that you got it. Good. If I hear back from the great, there's no, have you had a chance to look at it?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm done. That's you want to engage with me, then we'll do this. If I've provided enough value that I can solve the problem and help you overcome the crisis and give you what you want, then you should give me money so that I can do that with you.
Right. And thank you, Lorna, for clarifying that, because when you're doing it every day, I don't see sometimes the differences of it. But like would you like some help with that is so much different than do you want help? You're totally right. Um
As you get older, Joey, and you forget things, it's good to have Lorna around to remind you.
well, it just becomes part of the language, and you just
Yeah.
forget that you do it, and it's more just softer language. Like, would you like some help with that or whatever? And even to your point where you were just saying, going back to leaving them alone and letting them do on their own. There's so many people that will disagree with us, and it's like, no, you need to get on the phone and get that sale. I've heard language. It was, I don't know if you saw my last email with the vengeance, like
Yeah.
go after them with a vengeance. And that word is like, I can't believe people are using that word. And that's the mentality. And I'm like, no, it's
Well, and Joey, but it's taught we've read the selling books, go back when, and a lot of the selling books were like, you have to get 7 no's before a yes. I
yeah.
learned that way back when I sold life and health insurance.
Yeah, every
I
no is one step closer to a yes. Okay.
how much is the yes worth and divide it by 7. So somebody said no and hung up on me. I just made $300.
Right.
Really? No.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't care. I'd call people up, and it was like I'd open up this book and say, "Hey, let's talk about life insurance and this. You got a house worth this much." And they're like, "No." It's like, okay, next. Or I'd go cold calling and walk in places. Why? Because it was fun, but there wasn't any high pressure. I couldn't do it. I can't do it. We
Um,
I'll read this one.
Go ahead.
I got to do something here. I found that when I'm patient, give value through the process, give the overview of what I can do to solve their crisis, the question, would you like help with that, becomes relief for them. Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's doing the job And Lauren is obviously she's in Atlas, so she knows that she goes through the process of what we're talking about here in a deeper way. But it's the same. The process is always talking about this thing, going from the implicit to the explicit. So it's like, tell me what's happening, what's going on. I'm not making any more money, or I haven't sold anything. Oh, okay. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Is there a story there? Like you're asking, and that people love to talk about themselves, and that's what we want. Like, tell me more about that. Like, what's going on? And then the what have you tried, and all these other kind of things. And yeah, you're right, Lorna. By the time they've vomited like all the bad stuff on, they're like, this is everything's going on. Like, and you say, would you like some help with that? It's totally a relief because they're seeing the crisis on the table. It's like they're looking at all these words and phrases and all these things that they just spewed out to you, and you're like, do you want me to help you clean that up?
Joey, how do you handle the money piece? Let's say that we're talking about a $25,000 thingy engagement. How do you, and by the way, earlier on, I think a lot of your process is about disqualifying people
Totally.
rather than qualifying them. Ask the qualifying questions. No, ask the disqualifying questions. It's kind of like in Jason Moffitt's Equity 5000, and you and I have talked about this. If you're going to engage in a client for a long term, make sure that you do personality tests and get to know these people other than they can give me money. Because a lot of times, as we know, you end up with a nightmare. You're a terrorist, not a dream client. You end up with a terrorist, and you have to fire people. And that's no fun. So disqualifying from the get-go. And by the way,
Yeah.
for those of you that are watching the show, we're talking about the difference between selling a $100 product or a high-end product and talking about spin selling. And if you're live, do hashtag live. And if you're watching the replay, hashtag replay. And join us in Facebook at Heart Centered Marketing Club, where Joey gives the most incredible value on an ongoing basis, day in, day out, answers questions, helps people transform, and truly walks the talk that he's talking. So go to Heart Center Marketing Club, get in and learn what this is all about, what this brilliant individual brings forth to the anti-world of. And Joey, earlier, I was going to comment and say the industry makes it easy for you. And the
For
industry
sure.
makes it easy for every single person that comes into the club and ends up in Atlas or some iteration of it, because it's unfortunate that there's a predominance of people doing things the wrong way, or not the wrong way. Let me take that back. What I call like kind of hypey and sleazy and just that doesn't feel good. I want an interaction with somebody to feel good at the end, good, bad, or indifferent, if we engage together or not. But oh, that person tried to sell me this thing and this and that. We talked the other day. I'm following an email sequence that I opted in December, almost 3 months now. I don't know how many hundreds of emails that I've gotten from this guy. It's insane. And
Hmm.
I do it just, I store them in a folder because one day I'll look through them and I might find a couple of subject lines that work. But all of the panic and scarcity and all this just trying to basically say, you're an idiot if you don't do this, instead of, I hope that when you're ready, I'm here for you, that I'm still able to provide this value for you in a way. Because I know, Joey, from when I met you to now, to a couple of years down the road, those people that get into Atlas
Yeah.
these days are getting in for the bargain of a lifetime,
Hmm.
because the value that they get with you, and I'm not doing this for any reason, Joey, other
Thank
than
you.
I've been around the block for a long time in this marketing world, online, offline, studied everything, and just the way you put it out there. I wouldn't have done 109 shows in a row if I didn't believe in what you do and watching. So, I mean, in 2 years from now, there'll be people paying Atlas and Elite a lot of money
Yep.
because just the value and the transformation they're going to get. It has
Yep.
nothing to do with raising it from 1 to 3 to 5 to 10. That's irrelevant because it's what would you do? It's kind of like goes back to a guy walks into the toothpaste company and says, "Would you pay me $1 million if I doubled your sales?" Uh-huh. Okay, make the nozzle twice as big, twice as much toothpaste will come out. Okay. Guy walks into a shampoo company and says, "Pay me $1 million, I'll double your sale." Okay. Add one word to the bottle. It used to say,
Repeat, right?
repeat. So it's what is if somebody pays you $5,000 or $10,000 to engage with you, and you're able to do a couple of things and tweak in that and help them to where they end up starting to make the money they need to make, or the lot of money or whatever it is, it's inconsequential. And
Right.
I want to put that out there for those that are
Thank you.
watching, especially with the money piece and understanding, going back to your industry is doing you a favor
I
by
know.
putting it out there so that when they get to Joey or Lorna or Netta or Petra or Monica or Daniel or Kali, or the list goes on of all the people, and they get to you, they're like, huh, a breath of fresh air.
Right.
This feels good, because you and I talk about some of the bigger marketers and we look at some of the things they do and go, really? Did you have to cross the line and do that?
Right.
Kind of, if it feels ucky, then and pressure to get the sale and close the sale and ring the bell and get the prize, and that just
What was the money question? Because you said there was
well,
there
the
was a
money question, yeah, was if you're, let's say you're going to engage with someone for a lot of money, how do you upfront in the beginning talk about it so you don't waste, so somebody doesn't waste an hour, 2, 3 hours back and forth, and then let's just forget about, okay, the price of the program is X. Let's say it's a coaching or consulting that, and it could be a big number. How do you prepare in the beginning to disqualify somebody around the money piece?
well, it's a great question depending on what that price is at the breaking point of how much what is the price point where you put that out front before you get on a call, let's say. All right. That's how I would do it, or how I do it. So anybody's coming into my private level coaching, for instance, knows totally upfront how much it is
Mhm.
before they get on the call with me. And I even go as far as having them click a button that says, I've read the entire thing, which 50% of them don't, but it's still right up front.
Right.
Now, you could you know me, I like being just like on the table, like let's be upfront with everything, right? And it could be very well that, okay, we're on this call to talk about private coaching, and this is a $25,000 investment if we go forward. Is that right? Like, just be very upfront. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh no, I didn't really know that. Okay, um let's talk about that first because it's I'm not going to try and sell you,
Yeah.
but if there is a fit for this, then that's what the investment is. Are you prepared for that?
Well, and Joey, what you're doing there too is, and I wanted you to bring that out, is the importance of being totally transparent up front and
Yeah.
not playing a game and trying to sell them into something and a payment plan and a this and a that. It's like, okay, this I'm disqualifying you. Again, we repel more people than we attract, because you don't need, if let's just use the $25,000. You don't need a bunch of those to do your $1 million.
No. Yeah, and the amount of time that you spend on somebody who is not willing to pay that, it's not because they're bad people or anything. It's just it's a waste of both of your time. You know,
Well,
it's
it,
it's not going to help them.
there are time vampires and tire kickers and window lickers who just like, I got nothing else to do. Let me get on a call with with this guy and just see what he's all about, because I'll just check it out. And
Well, that's why, for me, that I used to do like thousands of clarity calls, a
yeah,
banker's box full of them.
yeah,
And that's the reason why for me, my process of Atlas is easier because even though I could spend, I don't know, half an hour or something talking to somebody or chatting with somebody, and then they go and read a Google Doc, the price is right there. And it's like, you know what I mean? It's there's no pressure at all. There's no time. I hate to use the word wasted because it's not really wasted, but it's not like I'm getting on these calls trying to convert somebody. It's a very simple process to go check this out and let me know what you think. And that's
Well,
how I've changed. That's how I rebuilt my business. You know that. That's basically how I do it.
well, and it's such a perfect model because again, Joey, you're not standing in front of your Ferrari and your mansion and your super yacht and talking about all the money you make. You're showing people exactly how you do what you do and showing them how to do it by following the flags that you placed in the sand to do what you do. Now, do you have to do everything the exact same way Joey does? No. But if
No.
you don't do it the exact same way Joey does, you won't succeed. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
No,
There's adaptations of this because even today, like, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because today was one of the discussions around this where again some of the Atlas students were like, well, I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that. I'm not really sure. And then I'm like, that's not the way Atlas was built. It was
right,
built around being able to, modify anything that you want, but there's a foundation there, which is what you just talked about. Because this isn't
right.
about really Atlas. It's more about the foundation of being heart centered, letting go of um, the what am I looking for? Letting go of the expectation of getting a sale because you're talking to somebody or the outcome. I mean, that was one of the biggest things. And we talked about this today in many of my groups. There's a couple of calls I had today, and we talked a lot about this where if there was one secret that I could tell anybody, which is that I let go of everything.
Yeah.
I let go of the outcome. I let go of like, when is the sale going to come? Am I getting any ROI out of this? Like, what's happening? So the concrete result, I just let go of, and as soon as I did that, it just got easier for me.
Don't throttle them. I like the word throttle. And don't
Yeah,
do, throttling, anyone throttling, you push your foot down on the accelerator and throttle it. You're on a boat, you throttle it. Just anything throttling is just so harsh and so abrasive. And that's what a lot of things teach is the aggressive selling and the throttling of it. And um, I'm not a
yeah. I
fan.
call it bulldozer marketing. Like, you're just bulldozing your way into people's lives and pushing them as far as possible. You know, and you and I both know there's the whole mentality of like throttle them until they buy or opt out. Like, I'm like,
Yeah, and it's for me, Joey, I'm like, here's the offer, and I'm going to keep the offer this price for this much time, and maybe I'll let you know. I don't say this. I'll probably let you know one or two more times, and then like right before I'm done, I'll let you know that. But that's it. There's not. We've talked about this. 7 emails planned for
well,
72
dude,
hours.
like, on that topic though, Scott, there are times where I will throttle people or promote or whatever it is, but it's like you said, it's like you're preparing people for what is coming. And
Yeah,
for my list, that I don't send emails every day or 3 times a day or whatever, but if I'm promoting, let's use that word. If I'm promoting something and I'm saying like, okay, I'm going to talk about this. Would you like to know more about this? And they put their hand up, and they get segmented, right? And I then send them an email that says, by the way, you're going to get a whole bunch more emails than you're used to from me, and just be prepared for that because it's not normal. It's only because you put your hand up and you're in this promotion. Now, that's one email, but they're going to forget, right? They're going to forget. And then every email that comes in after that says, by the way, Scott, I'm sending you this email because you put your hand up, and I'll tell you again. Say, this is the reason why you're getting these emails. And by the way, if you don't want any more, click here and opt out of this promotion.
yeah,
Like, up front, not hidden down below and not, no, this is the first thing you read. So it's like I'm warning people that this is not normal Joey, but because and nobody gets mad. They're like, yeah, I did put up my hand. It's okay. Everything's cool. Maybe had one person just say, oh yeah, maybe it's not for me. I'm gonna opt out of this promotion list. To me, that's the way you do things. Is like, here's everything. Do you want to know about this more? And here's what's going to happen. So you're doing that right. I don't have a problem with everyday emails or whatever,
I
you know?
agree with you, Joey, and in a sequence, a soap opera sequence, and a product launch sequence, not a product launch formula. But yeah, if you're throughout the value, you know that in FVC for 30 days, I give them value and I don't ask them for anything. But there's a couple of places in there where if somebody says, I'm really interested in that, well, they're going to go on a little bit of a different journey. And I'm going to give them an opportunity to take advantage of something they said they were interested in. Do I throttle them? I don't know if but I
Well, it's a
agree.
different on the journey, like the journey, like, the behavioral journey is different than the actual, do you want to know more about this promotion? Like if I'm
Right.
releasing Atlas or something, hey, Atlas is coming. Would you like to know more about this? And they're like, yes. Like that to me is an explicit, I want to know more. And that's when I say, you're going to get a whole bunch of emails because I'm promoting Atlas now. And that's what's happening. Right. Where it's different because people are going through journeys all the time through my stuff where they'll, click something and they'll move to another journey, half a little journey or something. And even in that case, where there might be 4 emails, let's call 5 emails that's talking about a certain thing, they
Yep.
might come out every 2 days, or let's say every day. And then, but I'll tell them that. So they'll be used to like, oh, I'm only getting emails from Joey once every couple of days. And then they go into that thing. And then that first email will say, hey, I'm going to talk about dream clients and just want to let you know for the next 5 days, you're going to get an email from me every day. So I'm telling them exactly what's going to happen. And then at the end of that sequence, the fifth email, I'll say, so hopefully you love this, Scott. And I'm gonna put you back in the bucket or whatever, my normal email is, and you won't get any, you'll get my normal emails now, back to normal, back to regular programming, something like that. So I'm always explicitly telling people what's happening.
I think that's a really important piece for people to understand is the way you do what you do. First of all, they raise their hand and say, yes, I'm interested in said promotion. And then you tell them, look, you said you were interested. I'm going to send you this many emails. So there's not like, okay, when's this going to end?
Right. Right. Explicitly. And even if you're going to do, the Friday 3 emails thingy that you
Right.
send, then tell them, say, here's what's going to happen. And by the way, on Friday, I'm going to send you 3 emails. If you don't,
Yeah.
if you don't buy. And then on the Friday, you say, hey, this is email number 1 of the 3 I promised I was going to send you today.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And then I explicitly even say, because I truly think you need this. I truly want you to get this. This is why you're in this promotion. I'm trying to help you with this crisis. So this is the solution I have for you. Hopefully you agree and you take advantage of this. There's
Right.
nothing wrong
The,
with being, that's not really aggressive, Scott. It's more about like, you asked for this, I'm helping you.
well, but Joey, it's not aggressive. It's not throttling because you'd be doing them a disservice if you didn't do that. Because when they say, I'm interested in this thing, and you don't do your job to help them with that interest, then shame on you.
Yeah.
It's not like you're throttling someone who opted in for something or started it, and then all of a sudden you start throttling them with WMC or this or that when they're like, why are you sending me this? And I just replied to one of your emails, and now you're this. So I'm totally
Yeah. I think
in
the
it.
whole bottom line is to just, if anybody listening is, don't be afraid to tell people what's going on and give them also, I think what's more important is giving them the opportunity to remove themselves from that barrage of emails that even they
Right.
said, I'm ready for them.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid it's like that somebody takes that option. Like, okay, well, because it's better that you don't piss them off, right? It's like, well, email number 2, they opted out of this promotion. That means they don't really want to hear from you right now about that thing, not from you all together. It's like you're doing them a favor instead of you pissing them off and saying, yeah, I'm out of this whole thing. And that's what I see a whole bunch of people get wrong because they're just so afraid to say, like you said, disqualify people more
Right.
than try to get them to set the buy. No, if this is not for you and you've had already enough emails, it's a third email, then by all means, click this button and stop them. And to me, that's a way better way of marketing, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. Agreed. Totally.
Well, we came full circle, or no, actually, we didn't come full circle, but we will come full circle now because we're talking about implied or explicit. And implied is the statements that customers are having about their difficulties, their dissatisfaction, just the surface level stuff, which is, I'm not selling enough product or whatever. And then the explicit is the specific of what they want. I want to make more money so I can quit my job. That's, I want to sell more because I want to be able to quit my job or something like that. I want to send my kids to the best schools in the world or whatever. And so it's more specific about what the problem is. And that's what we've been talking about today. So if you're here on the replay, #replay, that'd be awesome. Thank you. Thank you for all the love and likes and all that kind of stuff. And for all the people who are here live, thank you for being here live. And that's it. Any last words from you, Scott?
No, I think it was a great topic on the differences in the selling a small product, selling a bigger product, and what we have to go through to it. And Collie says, wow, you can read.
There you go. No, okay, you can go ahead.
Collie says, wow, wow, wow. Thank you kindly, Scott and Joey. So informative, so refreshing, so necessary. Love and soul hugs. Right back at you, Collie.
Love it. Thank you again, my friend. Have yourself an awesome rest of the night, and we'll see you next Tuesday, right? Yeah, sorry, it is Tuesday. Okay.
Tuesday, yep.
I'm getting my days messed up. See you.